Some performances are just concerts. Others are death announcements. When Sylvester James Jr. took that stage in 1988, the secret his body carried was too heavy to hide anymore. AIDS was eating him from the inside, and soon everyone would see. Doctors had said, if you want to live one more month, don't go on stage. Friends had begged, Sylvester, please, this is suicide. His mother had cried, son, I'm not ready to lose you. But 8 months earlier, as his lover Rick Cranmer took his last breath, Sylvester had whispered something in his ear, I'll make them dance for you. And Sylvester, even in the face of death, never broke his word. That night, as the doors of War Memorial Opera House opened and 80,000 fans poured in, no one knew what they were about to witness wasn't just a concert, but a live confession, a farewell letter, the most tragic and courageous moment in music history. Backstage, as he applied makeup with trembling hands, the face in the mirror was no longer familiar. Sunken cheeks, dark circles, the exhaustion of a 70-year-old man at 41. He looked like Rick had in his final days. And worst of all, he knew that tonight, he might not be able to stand at the microphone. He might faint, collapse, stare death in the face, live on stage. But when the spotlights came on, and 80,000 people screamed his name, Sylvester grabbed that microphone, and then the words he said, the bombshell confession no one expected, no one was ready for, would freeze the entire hall, then make it cry, then be carved into history. Because that night, Sylvester James Jr. didn't just sing, he revealed his life's biggest secret, and he made them dance. Even while dying, he made them dance. If this story moves you, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss these untold stories. But how had he gotten to this stage? What had happened 8 months earlier that now had Sylvester dancing with death? December 1987, 4th floor of San Francisco General Hospital, in the Rita Rocket Lounge, the Castro streets were visible through the window. Sylvester was holding his lover Rick Cranmer's hand. Rick's breathing had become extremely difficult. Pneumocystis pneumonia had taken over his lungs. Oxygen mask on his face, tubes in his arms. He'd been admitted to the hospital 42 days ago. For 42 days, Sylvester hadn't left his side, sleeping in the hospital room every night, waiting each morning for Rick to open his eyes. But this morning was different. Rick's breathing had slowed. The numbers on the monitor were dropping, and Sylvester knew the end was coming. Rick's hands were cold. Sylvester took them between his palms, trying to warm them. Rick, stay with me, he whispered. Please, I'm not ready. But Rick's eyes were closed. His lips moved, trying to say something. Sylvester leaned in. Make them dance. Rick's voice was barely a whisper. For me, make them dance. Sylvester couldn't hold back his tears. I promise, he said. I'll make them dance for you. Every day, every night, they won't forget you, Rick. I promise. Rick Cranmer took his last breath at 7:15 a.m. on December 16, 1987. Sylvester felt his final heartbeat. His hand remained motionless in Sylvester's, and Sylvester felt in that moment that his own life had ended too. Because Rick wasn't just his lover, he was Sylvester's home, his safe harbor, his reason for living. Without Rick, Sylvester was just a shadow. But Rick's last words would keep Sylvester standing a little longer. Make them dance for me. The funeral was held 4 days later, at Glide Memorial Church. San Francisco's queer community had come to say goodbye to Rick. Sylvester sat in the front row. He wore a black suit, tears streaming behind his glasses. As the minister spoke, Sylvester thought of Rick's face, his laugh, his touch, his voice. They'd spent 6 years together, 6 years filled with love, trust, and hope. And now it was all over. A disease had taken their entire future. But Sylvester didn't know that the same disease was circulating around his own heart. And very soon he too would fall into that same bed. 2 weeks after Rick's funeral, Sylvester wasn't feeling well. He was constantly coughing. He couldn't sleep through the nights, sweating profusely. Looking in the mirror, He noticed he was losing weight. At first he thought it was bronchitis. From grief, he told himself. I lost Rick, my body's in shock. But deep down, he knew, because in Rick's final days he'd seen the same symptoms, the same cough, the same fever, the same weight loss. And one night, looking in the bathroom mirror, he faced the truth. I'm sick too, he whispered. I have it too. In the second week of January, 1988, Sylvester went to San Francisco General Hospital, to the same fourth floor, the floor where Rick had died. Doctors ran a series of tests, blood work, X-rays, T-cell count. As Sylvester waited for the results, he sat in the hospital waiting room. Through the window, he watched the Castro streets, those streets that were once filled with dancing, music, and freedom. Now they'd become paths where funeral processions passed. AIDS was ravaging San Francisco. Every day someone was dying. Every day a new grave was being dug. When the doctor arrived, his facial expression said everything. Mr. James, your test results are in. He held a file. You're HIV positive, and the disease is advanced. Your T-cell count is 180. Normal range is 500–1500. Yours is at a critical level. Sylvester felt as if a hammer had struck his head. He knew, but hearing it was different. How much time do I have? He asked. The doctor hesitated. With treatment, maybe a year, maybe a little more, but I can't guarantee it. Sylvester nodded. I understand. Then he asked, can I perform on stage? The doctor was surprised. Stage, Mr. James. You need to rest. Your immune system has collapsed. Any infection could kill you. But Sylvester was determined. I made a promise to Rick. I'm going to keep it. From that day on, life became a battle for Sylvester. Every morning he swallowed countless pills, AZT, antibiotics, painkillers. Every week he went to the hospital for checkups. But he didn't quit the stage. He couldn't, because the stage was where he breathed. When he stood at the microphone, there was no disease, no pain, just music, and music kept him alive. But no one knew Sylvester's secret. The world still saw him as that glittering disco queen. No one could imagine what was happening behind the curtain. February 1988. Sylvester met with his former manager, Tim McKenna. I want a concert, Sylvester said. A big concert, at War Memorial Opera House. Tim was surprised. Sylvester, aren't you sick? What are the doctors saying? Sylvester looked him in the eye. Tim, I'm dying. You know that. But before I die, I want to do one last thing. I want to make them dance for Rick, and I want to tell the truth. Tim understood what he meant. You're going to announce your illness? Sylvester nodded. Yes, live, in front of 80,000 people, because this disease can't be hidden anymore. People need to know. We're dying, Tim. Every day people are dying, and no one's talking. I'm going to talk. Concert preparations began, but Sylvester's health was rapidly deteriorating. In March he developed neuropathy. He felt constant numbness in his feet and hands. Walking had become difficult. In April he was hospitalized for 5 weeks. Doctors said his immune system had collapsed. You can't go on stage, they said. It would be suicide. But Sylvester didn't listen. I promised Rick. I'm keeping that promise. In May, Sylvester met with his mother. Letha Weaver had stopped speaking to her son 10 years ago. She couldn't accept his homosexuality, and the church had turned its back on him. But now, she'd heard her son was sick, and she came. They talked for 2 hours. Sylvester told his mother everything about Rick, the disease, his fears. Letha cried. Son, I don't want to lose you. Sylvester held his mother's hand. Mom, I'm already leaving. But before I go, I want to do the right thing. I want to tell people the truth. Letha nodded. Then I'll come with you. I'll come to the concert. I won't leave you alone. And then that moment came. October 1988. Concert night. But what happened backstage would turn out to be more dramatic than anything on stage. October 1988. Concert night. 6 p.m. At the back entrance of War Memorial Opera House, a black car stopped. When Sylvester got out of the car, his legs were trembling. Tim McKenna immediately helped. "Hold me," Sylvester said. "I can't stand." When they entered backstage, the crew was shocked. Sylvester was much thinner than at their last meeting. His cheeks were sunken. The areas under his eyes were bruised. He was 41 but looked like a 70-year-old. In the dressing room, the makeup artist came. "Mr. James, let me do your makeup." Sylvester looked in the mirror. He didn't recognize himself. Who was this man? Where was the disco queen? Where was that glittering, dazzling stage star? Now there was just a sick, exhausted man. "Do what you can," he told the makeup artist. "But don't expect miracles." 7 p.m. The stage manager came. "Sylvester, we have an hour. Are you coming out for rehearsal?" Sylvester shook his head. "No, I'm saving my energy." Then he asked, "Is the hall full?" The stage manager smiled. "Not full. Overflowing. There are thousands of people waiting outside. They're going crazy to see you." Sylvester took a deep breath. "Good. Because tonight, I'm going to give them something unforgettable." 7:30 p.m. His former backing vocalists, Martha Wash and Azora Rhodes, came to the dressing room. They were no longer 2 tons of fun, but were known as the Weather Girls. They'd left Sylvester in 1982 and made their own careers. But tonight they'd come back for their old friend. "Sylvester," Martha said, unable to hold back tears. "We missed you." Sylvester stood up and hugged them both. "I missed you too, girls. So much." Azora whispered, "Can you do this? Can you last on stage?" Sylvester smiled. "I have to. For Rick." 7:45 p.m. Dr. Mitchell entered the dressing room. He was Sylvester's personal doctor. He had a bag with him. "Sylvester, I'm asking one last time. Are you sure?" Sylvester nodded. "I'm sure." The doctor opened his bag. Inside were needles, morphine vials, painkillers. "I can give you these. They'll ease your pain. You'll be more comfortable on stage." Sylvester looked at the needles, then pushed them back. "No, I don't want morphine. I want to be clear. I can't give the fans a blurry performance." The doctor insisted. "But you'll be in pain, terrible pain." Sylvester looked him in the eye. "I've suffered all my life. I can suffer one more night." 8 p.m. The lights went out. The crowd screamed. Backstage, Sylvester stood at the edge of the stage. He felt the heat of the spotlights. He smelled the crowd, 80,000 people, all waiting for him, all wanting to see that glittering disco queen. But tonight would be different, because Sylvester had stopped hiding. The announcement was made. "Ladies and gentlemen, San Francisco's legend, the queen of disco music, Sylvester James." The crowd jumped to their feet. The sound of applause was deafening. Sylvester walked toward the stage. Every step was torture. His legs were trembling. His feet were numb. But he walked. When he reached the microphone, the spotlights hit his face, and his eyes were dazzled. For a moment he couldn't see anything. There was only light. Then his eyes adjusted, and he saw 80,000 people, all standing, all applauding, all shouting, "Sylvester! Sylvester!" In that moment he forgot everything. The pain, the disease, death. There was only love. And that love filled him. But no one knew that the first words Sylvester would say into the microphone would change the entire world. Because in that moment, music history's most courageous confession was about to be made. The first song began. "You make me feel mighty real." Synthesizer melodies rose. The drum beat played. Sylvester took the microphone and began to sing. His voice was shaking. It wasn't as strong as before, but it was still there. Still mighty real. The crowd sang with him. 80,000 voices united in one song. And in that moment Sylvester felt at home, because this was his home. The stage. Music. Dance. The first song ended. Applause echoed like thunder. Sylvester didn't put down the microphone. He stopped, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "Thank you for being here tonight." His voice was calm, but something trembled within it. The crowd fell silent. "I want to share something with you. Something I've been carrying inside for a long time." At the edge of the stage, Tim McKenna held his breath. In the dressing room watching the TV screen, Letha Weaver began to pray. Waiting backstage, Martha and Azora held hands, because they all knew it was happening now. The truth would be revealed. 8 months ago, Sylvester said, his voice breaking, "I lost the love of my life." A stir went through the hall. Rick Cranmer, he was my everything. We spent 6 years together. 6 years of love, joy, hope. He paused. Tears gathered in his eyes. Rick died from AIDS. The hall fell into deep silence. No one moved. No one breathed. 80,000 people were frozen, because they all knew what was coming. Sylvester didn't pull his mouth from the microphone, didn't close his eyes, didn't hide. Instead, he raised his head, looked at the crowd, and said, "And I'm living with the same disease. I'm also HIV positive. I'm also dying." In that moment, time stopped. 80,000 people were witnessing history, because in 1988, live, a stage legend had confessed his biggest secret to the world. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Silence. Deep, heavy, suffocating silence. Then, from the back of the hall, one person stood up, started clapping. Then another. Then another. And then the entire hall jumped to their feet. 80,000 people were standing and applauding, crying, shouting, "We love you, Sylvester. We're with you. You're not alone." Sylvester stood in the middle of the applause. Tears streamed down his cheeks. The truth he'd hidden for years, told no one, feared, he'd just confessed it in front of 80,000 people. And they weren't judging him, weren't damning him. They loved him, embraced him, accepted him. "Thank you," Sylvester said, his voice trembling. "Thank you. I love you all so much." Then he paused. He wanted to say one more thing. He leaned into the microphone. "Rick told me something before he died. He said, 'Make them dance. Make them dance for me.' And I promised him." He paused. He smiled through tears. "Tonight, I'm keeping that promise." The music started again. Dance disco heat. The drum rhythm played. The bass guitar wailed. And Sylvester began to dance. He trembled, staggered, almost fell. But he danced, because he was a disco queen. And disco queens shine even in their last breath. Danced through tears. Danced with joy, with pain, with love. Because that night, War Memorial Opera House wasn't just a concert hall. It was a healing center, a community, a family. And Sylvester was the heart of that family. 1 more song, 2 more songs, 3 more songs. Sylvester kept singing, kept dancing. His body ached, his lungs burned, his legs trembled. But he didn't stop, because he'd promised Rick, promised to make them dance. And Sylvester never broke his word. Finally, the last song came, over and over, a slow, emotional ballad. Sylvester took the microphone and began to sing. His voice was now a whisper, but every word, every note, came from the heart. The crowd listened silently. Some were crying, some were praying. All knew this moment might be the last. The song ended. Sylvester slowly lowered the microphone, looked at the crowd, and smiled. "Thank you, San Francisco. I'll love you forever." Then he bowed, made a deep bow, and walked backstage. Backstage, he was too exhausted to stand. Tim McKenna and 2 stagehands held him, sat him in a chair. Dr. Mitchell immediately rushed over, checked his pulse. "God, Sylvester, your pulse is 140. We need to get you to the hospital immediately." But Sylvester shook his head. "No, I did it. I did it for Rick. Now I can rest." When they returned to the dressing room, Sylvester collapsed. He cried, sobbed. 8 months of accumulated pain, fear, anger. It all poured out. Martha and Izora held him. "You did it," they said. "You were so brave." Litha Weaver entered the room, ran to her son, embraced him. "I'm proud of you, son. So proud." That night Sylvester slept in the dressing room. He couldn't leave the stage, because that was his home, his last home. But what happened after that night was even more heartbreaking, because Sylvester's time was much shorter than anyone thought. The next day, news spread around the world. Disco legend Sylvester makes AIDS confession. Sylvester reveals his illness live. Brave confession before 80,000 people. The media went crazy. Journalists requested interviews. Television channels prepared special programs. But Sylvester didn't accept any of them. "I've said what I had to say," he said. "Now it's time to rest." In November, Sylvester's condition rapidly deteriorated. The neuropathy intensified. He could no longer walk. He began using a wheelchair. Weight loss continued. He dropped to 45 kilos. He kept catching infections. Every week he was hospitalized, treated with antibiotics, but each time he became a little weaker. On Thanksgiving Day he wanted to gather the family. His mother Litha, his brothers Larry and John Wesley, all came to his house in Castro. Sylvester sat at the table. He couldn't eat but wanted to be with his family. "I love you all," he said. "I love you all so much, and I ask for your forgiveness." Litha cried. "There's nothing to forgive, son. You're our hero." In early December, Sylvester was admitted to the hospital for the last time. Pneumocystis pneumonia had completely taken over his lungs. He was struggling to breathe. An oxygen mask was attached. Doctors called his family to his side. "Be prepared. We don't have much time." On the night of December 15th, Sylvester told his friends, "Baby, I don't feel good. I might have caught a chill." Then he added, "Don't come too close. I don't know what's wrong." His friends left the room, but Tim McKenna waited by the door. From inside he could hear Sylvester's breathing sounds. Each breath was a struggle. Toward morning, Sylvester called for his mother. "Mom," he said, his voice barely audible. "Mom, come to me." Litha sat by her son's bedside, held his hand. "I'm here, son. I'm with you." Sylvester tried to open his eyes. "Mom, I can't do this. I'd be pleased if you'd stay with me." Litha couldn't hold back tears. "Of course I'll stay. I'm not going anywhere." At 7 o'clock the sun was rising. Through the hospital window, San Francisco Bay was visible. The Golden Gate Bridge sparkled in the morning light. Sylvester looked at that view. "Beautiful," he whispered. "So beautiful." Then he closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. The numbers on the monitor began to drop. Litha squeezed her son's hand tighter. "I love you, son. I love you so much." December 16th, 1988, 7:15 a.m., Sylvester James Jr. took his last breath. His hand remained motionless in his mother's. The monitor drew a flat line, and the room fell silent. The queen of disco music, the legend of dance floors, the hero of the LGBT community, was gone. But the story didn't end there, because Sylvester's legacy became even stronger after his death. The funeral was held on December 21st. Glide Memorial Church was filled with thousands of people. Tens of thousands waited outside. From Castro streets to the church there was a flood of people. The minister began his speech. "Today we're sending off a hero." Sylvester James Jr. wasn't just a singer. He was a pioneer, a revolutionary. With his courage, his love, his music, he changed the world. The church listened silently. Sylvester wasn't afraid of AIDS. He didn't hide the disease. On the contrary, he courageously confessed it in front of 80,000 people, and that confession gave courage to thousands of people. Thousands of people told the truth because of him. Because of him, we're no longer hiding in shadows. We're coming into the light. Martha Wash and Izora Rhodes took the stage. They sang "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," but this time they sang through tears. Their voices trembled, but were still strong. The church filled with song, and people felt Sylvester's spirit. In that moment, in that hall, Sylvester was still there, dancing, smiling, and saying, remember me by dancing. After the funeral, the cortege went to Inglewood Park Cemetery. Sylvester was buried in a place near his family and Rick. On the headstone it simply read, Sylvester James Jr. 1947 to 1988. Mighty real forever. Simple but powerful, just like Sylvester. And then the legacy began to be built. Because Sylvester had died, but his voice would live forever. In his will, Sylvester had donated all his music royalties to AIDS relief organizations. Over the decades, his songs continued to inspire new generations, from house music remixes to pride anthems worldwide. In 2014, Sylvester was honored at San Francisco's Rainbow Honor Walk. In Castro, his name was engraved on the sidewalk. That day, thousands of people gathered, old friends, fans, young queer people of the new generation, all walked over Sylvester's name. And that step wasn't just a movement, it was a remembrance, a thank you. In 2019, the Library of Congress added the song, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real to the National Recording Registry. This meant acknowledging that the song wasn't just popular but culturally significant. The statement read, Sylvester's You Make Me Feel Mighty Real not only represents the pinnacle of the disco era, but is also the freedom anthem of the queer community. This song is about identity, courage, and love, and it's an indispensable part of American music history. In 2023, Rolling Stone magazine ranked Sylvester 169th on their 200 Greatest Singers list. Critics praised his vocal technique. Sylvester's falsetto isn't just technique, it's a spiritual power, they said. That voice was born in gospel churches, echoed in disco floors, and still rings in our ears today. Today, Sylvester's legacy still lives. At every pride march, in every queer club, in every moment of courage. Today, at every pride march, when You Make Me Feel Mighty Real plays, new generations find courage in his voice. Sylvester James Jr. died on December 16, 1988, at age 41. But his legacy lives on. He showed the world that courage can exist even in the face of death, that love conquers fear, and that being true to yourself is the greatest act of defiance. That night at War Memorial Opera House, Sylvester didn't just make a confession, he started a revolution. And today, every time someone finds the courage to live their truth, every time You Make Me Feel Mighty Real plays at a pride march, Sylvester is still there, still dancing, still making us mighty real, because some people don't die. They just leave the dance floor. But their music plays forever. Mighty real, forever.